Hello, church. Today we're going to be reminded about the importance of listening to God's voice and His calling for our lives. I remember about 17 years ago applying for a job that I thought it would be the job of my life, my career, my calling in life. I remember applying, and 2 days later, getting a phone call from the HR representative that I did get hired. I remember I was excited and happy because I've been waiting for that yes and that phone call for a long, long time. I thought that was my calling. Well, a decade later in that job, I remember finding myself asking, is this my real calling? Is this where I do belong and where I wanted to be? A few years later, 3.5 years later, God answered that question, and He guided me and told me, your calling is in ministry. Your calling is to help children to come closer to me, to mentor the next generation to have a faith that won't be moved. And what a blessing that has been for my family and for my life. It reminds me of the story that we find in Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 to 21, when Jesus is calling his first disciple. Verse 18 tells us that as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. We see four brothers being fishermen, casting their nets in the water and leaving everything behind and following Jesus. They heard the calling of Jesus for them. And I love that he says, like, I will make you fishermen of people. What a wonderful job is to know that God has a calling for each one of us. And the only thing that we need to do is just to try to be attentive to God's voice and prepare that if He's telling us, follow me, to follow Him, to try to understand the purpose of God's calling and go for it, because we know that God has something incredible. We know that God has something special for each one of us. And in the process of finding that calling or following God's calling, we need to remember that we are fishermen for people. We have to go and share the gospel and the good news with those around us. Church, let's make this year a year where we can ask God to help us to find our calling if we don't know it, and if we know His calling, that to follow Him, to leave everything behind to find His blessings, and in the process to make disciples and to bring people closer to Jesus. Amen.